Today I am combining two of Tessa's challenges because they end up going together pretty well. Her challenge for everyone, which is to talk about books that we like, and their challenge specifically to me, which is to tell a sweet little story about Little Abby. These two go really well together because Little Abby was a much more avid reader than adult Abby is. What I think was especially cute about Little Abby reading was that I had the whole ritual that went into when I read. When I was little, my siblings had this little facade of a playhouse with a little door that you could go in, and I used to use this to set up a little barrier around my reading nook, and then I had this whole secret process where I would hide this imaginary key, and I'd have to go and find the imaginary key to open the door, to get through, and then lock up and put the key away so I could get to my special reading spot to read. Reading was especially magical to me because it completely transported me to a different world. It still does. But when I first learned how to read, that meant a lot to me, and so I had a lot of respect for the process, which is why I had this kind of little sacred practice to amp me up for reading. At that age, when I had my whole reading nook ritual, I was reading the Royal Diary series, which was a series of books that were historical fiction about female royalty and diaries that they might have kept. My favorite one was Elizabeth I's diary. It was from when they were kids. I forgot to mention that. So it was when she was 11 or 12, I think, is when the book was set in. That's the only book that I don't have a physical copy of because that was my family's book. It wasn't my personal book. As I got older, I had less of a real-life physical ritual, but I still had this sort of mental ritual. Physically, what I'd be doing is going and sitting in a big comfortable chair, but in my mind I was scaling the steps of this huge tower to get up to my special reading spot. At this point, Little Abby had gotten really into high fantasy, and I do have hard copies of some books from then. I have the first book in the series, the Septimus Heap Magic series. It's just a really great magic series. We got big families, wizarding schools, royalty, assassination attempts. And the pages have this kind of soft, uneven edging that I find really pleasing. And then I was also reading the Knights of the Silver Dragon series. This is the first book in that series. It's a Dungeons and Dragons adventure novel series. So it's about kids again, but there's a wizard, a thief, and then a classic fighter. And they're going on adventures. Pretty classic D&D stuff. This was actually my introduction to D&D. As I mentioned earlier on, Little Abby definitely read way more than current Abby, but I do have a favorite book as an adult. I've talked about it before, but it's Dracula. In fact, I have two copies because I am going to use one to write in because I am hoping to work on an adaptation of Dracula. I maybe will talk more about that in the future. We'll see if I actually do it. I really like Dracula. I'm not going to go into a lot of details right now because A, I've definitely talked about it during VEDS before, and B, I suspect that most of us are at least familiar with the story of Dracula, but if you want to hear me go on more about Dracula, please let me know. Thank you so much to Tessa for these challenges. This was a lot of fun to think about. Reminded me that I need to get more into reading in my current life. For now, to my friends and fellow VEDSies, I'll see you soon.